guys, okay, so on to our first revolution. It's going to be the English Civil War and the Glorious Revolution. Alright, let's get started. Okay, so some of the reasons for the English Civil War. Okay, so if you remember, we started off with Henry, way back when we talked about the Protestant Reformation. We love Henry. He's a crazy guy. But he did have a couple of children, not many, with all his wives, even though that was his goal to have a son. He has one son who dies very young. And so he's left with these two daughters, Elizabeth and Mary, who's known as Bloody Mary. So in 1603, Elizabeth died, and she never married, and there were no sons to continue her heirs. There was this guy named James I, who was the son of Bloody Mary. So he becomes the king of England and start the Stuart dynasty in England. So Elizabeth recognized the importance of working with Parliament. She really believed in creating some more religious toleration, and she was really focused on trying to help out, making it a more accepting country. But her nephew, James I, did not. He was a Catholic, and he believed that he should be the absolute monarch because of this divine right to rule. And he didn't listen to the Parliament. He said, you know, I know that my Aunt Elizabeth was trying to be really nice and create all this religious toleration, but I'm the son of Bloody Mary, and I'm not having all that religious toleration. That's okay. I have the divine right to rule. I say that England is going to be Catholic because I'm the king, and I don't care what anyone else says. And so it's going to create a lot of issues with Parliament and the king, with authority, with money, with religion, because James says, I don't need Parliament. I can do whatever I want. Okay. So as far as authority goes, again, he believed in that divine right, and Parliament felt that the king should be limited by themselves. They said, we're Parliament, we don't need this person telling us what to do. Like, there needs to be some sort of a balance here, because he shouldn't be an absolute ruler. And so it's just back and forth argument about that. As far as money goes, James kept going up to Parliament and saying, hey, I want to buy this beautiful palace, and I'm going to buy, like, all these houses for all my mistresses. Okay, go, make it happen. And Parliament says, we have our own money, we don't have time for you and your own lavish lifestyle. Like, you do your own thing, we do our thing. Like, but we need to work together better. And he didn't listen to him. And then again, as religion goes, again, so Puritans, who are members of the Anglican Church, Puritans are a little bit different, wanted all Catholic rituals removed. They said, you know, we need to make this strictly Anglican. And James I was absolutely not having that. Because again, he's a Catholic. And so he was really angry when he made his son, Charles, marry this Catholic princess. So he's trying to make the government way more Catholic than the rest of Parliament wants it to be. So James I dies in 1625, and again, no religious toleration whatsoever, was just kind of a butt. But he dies, and then his son, Charles I, became king. And so you think, oh yay, a new person, maybe he'll be better, but absolutely not. He was completely worse than James. So he believed also in that divine absolute monarchy, that he should rule. Parliament, you know, go away, we don't need you. And then I only want Parliament around when I need more money to buy more stuff. So he's a pretty terrible guy. So Parliament got really fed up with Charles I. They were just not having him. So they created this thing called the Petition of Rights in 1628. And they refused Charles to pay them money unless he did these things. So they said, you are not going to work with us, that's fine, here's a document. And unless you sign this, like, we're not going to give you any more money for your lifestyle. So here's what this thing said. It said that the king could not jail people unless they had a good reason to. You can't just say, I don't like this person, you're off to jail and you're done, you're off with your head. Like, no. The king needs to wait until he has a good reason to put someone in jail. Also, the king couldn't make taxes unless Parliament approved. You can't just tax people all over the place. You have to have a reason to tax the people. And then the king could not keep his soldiers in people's homes. You can't just show up and say, oh, we're going to stay here as order of the king and take over your area. Like in Shrek, they took over the swamp, and he was like, this is my swamp. Like, you can't do that. You have to have permission. Like, there's got to be a lot more things. You can't just take over someone's land. And then that also, you can't use an army to maintain order during peacetime. You can't just have an army come in and enforce your laws like you want them to and just do awful things without justification. So again, he refused to sign it. And he was really mad at Parliament for even considering making him sign such a thing. So he refused to call another Parliament for another 11 years. So he said, you know what, we're just not even going to have a Parliament. I'm just going to not even let it happen. Until he needed money to end the revolts in Ireland and Scotland. So he said, until I get enough money, and even though I don't care, Parliament's not going to give me anymore, we're going to figure it out. They just don't even get to exist anymore. But you can't just not have it. It's like if we just didn't have Congress, and like, The president said, oh, I just don't need Congress. I'm in charge now. You can't do that. So it's going to create this big conflict between supporters of the king, known as royalists or cavaliers, and the parliament, which were the Roundheads. Yes, they were called the Roundheads. I know, it's very funny. Their hats literally look like a round head. Look them up. And the Roundheads, between the Roundheads and the Cavaliers, that conflict's going to grow so bad that a civil war is going to erupt. Okay, so this war between the Cavaliers and the Roundheads is going to last for about 5 years. And the Roundheads, again, the people in favor of Parliament, found this strong leader in this guy named Oliver Cromwell. So Cromwell and the Roundheads are going to win, and they're going to take over the government. So it's going to be the end of kings and queens in England. Oh my God. And they're going to behead Charles I. It's the first public execution ever of a king, where someone took a king and then cut their head off. But the Parliament's going to take over. So after the war, a commonwealth's going to be created where the government has no king and it's ruled all by Parliament. So Oliver Cromwell is going to lead this commonwealth. But one thing that he's going to do that's going to bother the people who originally supported him, he doesn't just create like a democracy or something like in the United States. Oh no, oh no. He creates a military dictatorship, and he becomes the head of the military. He's a military dictator. So life in this commonwealth was really harsh because it was led by Cromwell and the Puritans. So these Puritans are these really, really strict, by the Bible people. They don't mess around. So he forced this really strict religious rule on people in England. So for instance, it was illegal to go to sporting events, so no soccer in England, sorry. No theaters. He got rid of the theaters, like you were not allowed to go into the globe. Merrymaking, so merrymaking just means having fun, and amusement were illegal. So don't even try to have fun in the Commonwealth, you will be killed. And the citizens absolutely hated this, living this way. They're like, nah fam, I'd rather have a king. Let's just bring back the king again. And then they started even making like Civil War graffiti. So all over England, you just see this awful graffiti. Like, for example, King Charles is a bum. Let Parliament rule. Cavaliers stink. And all these awful things about the Cavaliers. And so it's just constant back and forth between Cavaliers versus Royalists. I mean, it's just a whole thing. So eventually Commonwealth's going to be restored, and you're going to get rid of the Commonwealth. People grew really tired of those religious rules of Cromwell and the Puritans, and so they said, you know what, I think we'd just rather have a king, honestly, than all this garbage. So in 1660, Charles I's son became King of England, and Charles II is going to be his name. He's called the Merry Monarch because he brought back theaters, sporting events, dancing, and he got along with Parliament. So he said, you know what, even though that Commonwealth didn't work, I'm going to start a whole new thing. Let's just get the king back together. Let's forget that this whole Cromwell situation ever existed. And here, we'll just go back to how it was, and I'll actually work with Parliament this time. And Charles II, he said, you know what, I've learned the lessons from my father, my grandfather. I'm not going to try to be a divine king. I know I'm not, like, told by God to rule. I'm just going to take a back seat here. And not threaten Parliament's authority. So he's going to pass this thing called habeas corpus, which guaranteed a trial for everyone after arrest. So when you are arrested, you have to have a trial. That basic right of being able to give your own opinion and say, no, I did not commit this crime. That had never happened before until habeas corpus law. And then also that you can't be held in jail forever. So it's not like you just sit there and you just rot in jail waiting to be able to either be executed or given a trial. Now you actually have to have something happen. And then he also made Anglicanism the official religion, but he said, you know what, even though Anglicanism is going to be the same and like Church of England, still the head of England, Puritans and Catholics, you're here, you're treated equally, and it's just going to be great. Okay. So during this restoration, Parliament also strengthened the Church of England. So one thing that they did, so again, it's not completely perfect, they had a lot to work out, because at this time, only Anglicans could attend university, serve in Parliament, and be priests in the Anglican Church. And they created this thing called a constitutional monarchy based off that Magna Carta and the Petition of Rights I talked about earlier, which basically just guaranteed rights of people and limited the king. But there were some other problems too. So after the end of the Commonwealth, Charles II's over, he says, oh, okay, I fixed it all, everything's great. But there's still problems. So Charles II needed more money than Parliament was willing to give. So he made this secret agreement with Louis XIV of France, that absolute ruler we talked about last time, to convert to Catholicism in exchange for money. So he said, you know, I've ended the divine right. I said I was going to take a back seat, but like, I need money. So he goes up to King Louis and says, hey, if you give me money, I'll make England Catholic again. So Charles II had no children, and when he died, his openly Catholic brother James II became the king. So now all of a sudden, it's like, oh crap, we're just back to where we started at. Now we've got a new ruler who wants Catholicism, doesn't like religious toleration. This is going to be great. So here's James II, and this is what's going to create the glorious revolution. Because again, now you just had all these crazy absolute monarchs, and even though Charles II was fine, he wasn't great. Like, they're all terrible. So now we got James, who is ignoring Parliament's religious laws, and he starts appointing Catholics to government and university positions and saying, you know what? No, we can't have just Anglicans. We're going to be Catholic now, and I'm going to make it more Catholic. So he's going to go and do things like make more Catholics, and it's going to really scare Parliament because they're worried that the throne would go to James II's son, who was Catholic. So Parliament instead is going to encourage this guy named William of Orange. And yes, he is indeed from Orange. There is a city named Orange. Orange was this place in the Netherlands where he was ruling. And William was married to this guy, to James II's daughter, Mary. So it's William and Mary. And they encourage them and say, hey, we're Parliament, and we want to get rid of all this problems going on between the Catholics. Like, would you guys from the Netherlands, and the Netherlands are always just happy, great people, even in 2019, it's fine. So they go up to them and say, hey, England, it's just not working out with the kings, and we need someone from the Netherlands where they're actually accepting to take over. So William and Mary say, okay, cool. So they end up taking over, and James II flees to France when he realizes he doesn't have support because England just doesn't want to go through this whole rigmarole. They're like, you know, we just want someone who's actually accepting and cares about us. So they get William and Mary, who end up taking over. And that powerful, peaceful, powerful transition is going to be called the Glorious Revolution. So there's no war that comes about this. William and Mary just say, we actually are going to come in and make peace and be really good. And that scares James and all the Catholics. So they flee to France. And from here on out, it's going to be a lot more peaceful. So William and Mary are going to swear an oath that they would govern the people of England symbolically, and that Parliament's going to make all the decisions. So this is the reason, these people right here, William and Mary, are the reason that the Queen of England right now doesn't have all that much power. It's mostly symbolic. Because William and Mary said, just to create more toleration, let's get rid of having an absolute ruler. We want Parliament and the people to be able to make their own decisions. So Parliament passes the Bill of Rights. And that's going to make clear that Parliament is in control, not the King and Queen, for the very first time. Okay, so this Bill of Rights protects the rights of citizens from the government. So, for one, the King cannot tax or overturn Parliament laws. Whatever Parliament said, that's final. It protects their freedom of speech. People can speak out in England if they don't like something, like today with Brexit, for instance. The army can't be used as a police force. And then you don't have excessive bail. So, like, you don't have a lot of money to get bailed out. So together, the Magna Carta and the Bill of Rights is going to create this constitutional monarchy in England. It's going to be like, it's going to limit basically the terms on the king's power. And that's all I've got for the Glorious Revolution. I know that was a lot of information, just trying to figure out that timeline. Again, we're going to go over it a lot more in class because I know it was a lot. But that's all I've got, and the next video is going to be the American Revolution. Alright, see you next time.